Three, two, one, go. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday. Or it's not Friday. It's Monday. It usually is Friday. I'm all messed up because of the holiday. You know how it is. Waiting for a little bit to join to actually officially kick this thing off. Although we might kick it off before extra people join. But there could be up to like 7 of us. There could be this is it. And either way, I'm more than fine with that because you know
Yeah,
we got the big fish himself.
I'm not a big fish. I'm a very small minnow. The no whale here.
Wow.
So
I'm sure
covering my bases.
I'm sure you could use me as a kettlebell for Turkish get-ups though. So like notice he didn't deny it.
No, uh, I plead the fifth.
Yeah. So that's fun. But while we're waiting for everyone else to trickle in and start watching, yeah, the pre-show chatter was just about whales and about how the coin has some like the crypto world has some interesting whales. People who don't know how to manage money super well. Do you have any
Well,
fun
it's not
stories
just.
about that?
Well, it's not just that. I wouldn't say it's not just about like the money aspect. That they're not like they haven't spent it just yet. I think there's just the echo chamber. It fun while it lasts, right? But then when it comes to practicality, a lot of people don't know how to manage it,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, hey, my bank account went from just 5 figures, now it's 7 figures. Whoop, I can like you were mentioning, just go Richard Hart and buy all the
Mm-hmm.
Louis Vuitton, PJs, and skirt around taxes as much as they want. And as much as I do agree, taxation is theft. The state is very, very dangerous. You know, you don't want to fuck with that too much. And I mean, yep, there's some versiveness, et cetera, et cetera. But
Mm-hmm.
when people look at the actual, power structure in any country, it's like, yeah, Elon Musk is not exactly, walking around flaunting his own Louis Vuitton wear. He's got his financial advisors, lawyers, and all that, and people he consults with. And these, nouveau rich crypto guys don't have that. They probably don't even have an accountant of sorts or bookkeeper, and so they're spending, and then they're not aware that everything is it is traceable for the most part. Even Monero Bros, it all depends on how you source your coin. It's not 100%.
Yeah, for sure. And every like this is the thing about like I we're gonna get to the Zcash versus Monero thing in a little bit because there was some stuff. It's always fun. But one thing I will say, Zcashers seem to be very private compared to like in just Monero people talk a lot more, right? And Zcashers
Mm,
first off seem very private, and they also I don't know anyone personally off the top of my head who are like primarily Zcash people who aren't like super up on their accounting and their compliance.
right.
And that's kind of one of the criticisms that people might have thrown at them is, oh, you're not spicy enough. You're too compliant stuff, which I'm sure is fair enough because sometimes there's been sometimes where they've sort of waited a little bit too much for permission before doing something
Yeah.
revolutionary. On the other side, the Monero vibe is they're very, very how can I say it? They're very loud about stuff. Even they sometimes are pseudonymous, which I guess is a great first step, right? They're very loud about opinions and things like that, and they're also very how can I say it? They're very they love to talk smack, right? And
Yeah.
unfortunately, sometimes like a lot of people smart people know their boundaries for this stuff. Yeah, man, lost it all in the boating accident, all that kind of stuff. A lot of people just know that that's idle chatter. Some people are dumb. and are just going to be like, oh, but this is how I do cyberpunk. You can't tell how much I have, and then you go to prison because you attract dummies to do dummy things and go to prison over this. And so,
Yeah.
like, do you think I would bet a significant amount of money that Amir Taki pays his taxes. Wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, dude. I Look. He's a smart guy. I think anybody. Let's be straight, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all agree taxation is stuff. We all hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as we want to not pay, the very fact of the matter is that the state. If we all believe that the state is organized violence or organized crime, I mean, they will use that force on you. They want their pound of flesh, one way or another, and it's fun to rattle the bear's cage, but then it's another one to poke it with a stick at close range.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it's
if you consider you have rights, if you let's just say you consider that you're from the anarcho perspective of you are kind of owned by the state and you're just in a state of constant subjugation. In order to keep the inmates
yeah,
from rising up, they, at least in the freer world, like the U.S. and the Western nations, but for mostly the U.S., they give you the right to free speech to a certain extent. And so, even though you still have to do what they want, they let you talk shit about it, and it's kind of like one of the things.
yeah,
And so, a lot of people, the smart people, understand their place in that ecosystem where they understand that, like, okay, look, I'm on a leash. I can run around and growl and do whatever, but I'm still on a leash. There's the invisible fence you don't cross, and that is,
right.
you know, that's the boating accident, the metaphorical boating accident. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, the thing that I find really interesting, I mean, just uh, running the business, you know, we have advisors who are just like very tax minimalists, right? They want to pay as little tax as possible, but they use all the guidelines, that is set out. So, oh, invest here, purchase this, write off that, right? It's not as if they're trying to skirt, around it. Like there's a difference between tax avoidance and then tax evasion.
yeah,
Avoidance is all pre-planned, and you need to know exactly what those are, how to report it, how to track it. And then tax avoidance is just, the simple, or I'm not paying. For
hmm,
example, the idea of, oh, well, I just don't file my taxes, right? Well, something that a lot of people don't understand is that there's a thing called the substitute filing. So you might not file your tax, but after a certain point, the federal agencies will file on your behalf and start keeping a tab. So
yeah,
it's either, and they'll usually go try to find the maximum amount that they can take from you. So either you're going to do it, right, and try to lower your tax bracket as much as possible, or they're going to do it and get the most tax possible. And then further on top of that, okay, let's say you don't want to pay on that end, but you're going to end up paying somebody. It's not, we don't live in a vacuum. It's either going to be the mobsters, right? Gangs, landlord, someone. You're paying someone. So
yeah,
which one do you want on your behalf?
and that is kind of a goofy system if you think about it. About um, they could keep track of what you owe and then make you pay it, but like you can also do it yourself and do a little bit better. But then if you tell them the wrong thing, then you get in trouble. It's this weird little system where it's kind of like when people talk, like they call it single payer healthcare or whatever. Which I'm a huge fan of
Hmm.
single payer healthcare. Single payer being the sick person who pays the hospital. That's the single payer. You pay, right?
Yep.
It's so I kind of bemoaning the whole tax situation. Well, I wish I could just like tell them what I wanted to pay, which is $0, and then just,
Yep.
hey, I think I don't know anything this year. Here you go. Kind of wish that. But on the other hand, I probably kind of wish they would just say, in all fairness, like I kind of wish the filing, the the self-filing would be more of an like appeal, where you say, they say, hey, you owe this much. You're like, that is crazy. I do not owe this much. Here's everything. I kept meticulous at accounting. Here's how much I actually did. Here's these exemptions that you should have applied. And then you take it and then, all right, fine, you get a refund, whatever. That's kind of how I wish it would be. But I really wish it would just,
Yeah, they do that in Japan. That's the way it is here. It's because your company is filing, the equivalent of a W-2 or 1099 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a running tally. And then the government sends you a notice. It's like, okay, so this is what you earned. This is what was paid on your behalf. This is what we think you owe, or this is what, whatever you get back. And there's a list of things that you can do to lower it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then, I mean, we kind of have that in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't, they know what you're making, because if you're filing a W-2 or you're filing a 1099, it's on the radar because let's say people who are doing everything on an exchange, the exchange has to report. If you're working, your job has to report. So naturally, you're going to have to report. And
Absolutely.
I think, there's a transcript, IRS transcript, people can sign up to get directly, and that'll show them what's on the radar. So if someone's like, well, I don't know what I owe, I don't know what they see, it's like, well, go get the transcript and see what matches up. And then maybe look at the guidelines or whatever and try to lower it. Like, here's one, being married, right? The government does want you to be married. It gives you a nice tax break for being a married couple. If I think if you're making less than 90 grand as a married couple, you're in the 0% tax bracket.
Dang.
So, people go get married. Yeah, that's between the two of you.
Yeah.
But of course, inflation, is spiking up. But I mean, I guess it just takes another look or another perspective. It's like, okay, if you're doing the whole crypto thing and the number goes up, and you're not making enough, don't be afraid to sell some of your crypto or use it, to buy goods and services and oh, but I'm going to have a gain. It's like, yeah, but you're not making 90 grand, right? So you're able to have some tax breaks on that side. And I mean, even back to the, the accountants and the way people report stuff. I mean, Al Capone had a freaking, accountant. So, I mean, criminals also have accountants and bookkeepers. I mean, if they're doing it, why doesn't the average pleb? Your QuickBooks isn't going to do it for you. So,
yeah, that's for sure. Final theft lament before we get the intro rolling and thing was I would say, I really wish that there was a lot more kind of like usage / subscription based tax modeling rather than this like crazy track everything you earn, pay percentage of your everything. So, for example,
I wish it was still voluntary.
Listen,
that's the way it's supposed to be, right?
Let's not get that far. But so the point is, so for example, the New Hampshire state tax model, no sales tax, no state income tax, whatever.
Yeah.
And they had an interest and dividends tax, which is being phased out to nothing, which is pretty great. So you got.
Oh, so then you'll be just like Florida. New Hampshire will be a free state.
Well, we can have that argument all day long. But so the point is, most of what you would pay was from property taxes or what would, the second order effects of that. And then there's, tolls if you go on the toll roads. And then there's the parks. You use the parks, you can do that. Or if you buy the special license plate for a little extra, then you get the parks free. And there's a few little things like that where it's like entirely like usage based, and property tax is kind of like the subscription to the state, right? You want to live here. This is what it costs to live here, right? Yeah. And even though I kind of would prefer just like like the internet sends you a bill. They don't say, well, what are your resources? How much? No, they just say either here you go, this is the flat rate, or here you go, this is based on how much you use. And then do they know how much you got? Does Comcast know how much you got? No, they don't care. They just send you a bill for what you do. And if things were that way, I think things would be a lot more efficient and nicer. Where you don't have the accounting industrial complex. You don't have like armed people and armed IRS agents in wheelchairs. Remember that video coming up, and like you don't have all this like clown show. Let's just hope the Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency, starts making these kinds of things, because I know that good old Teabag, the most powerful man on the planet after Elon Musk, is making these very big proclamations about like the biggest tax cuts in history are coming and all this kind of stuff. And we'll see. But if you get anything reasonable, if you do like reduce the burden for me personally specifically by like 10% or 5% or whatever, and make it significantly easier to do, then I'm going to make a golden statue of the man in my bathroom doing the dance, and just leave it there for all time. Because things are so bad that just that modest increase would be like, oh yes.
I mean, look, there's a lot of things that were promised and said. Just being able to have no capital gains tax.
Oh, wow. Listen, let's not get crazy here.
That was what was promised,
Mm-hmm.
And then what was it, at the BTC conference? He made that proclamation to make it easier, more friendly. I have no faith in government whatsoever. So it's
that's
maybe
nice.
This has been like, this is the bearish I've been in a very long time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Which is strange.
It's a unique kind of intersection of this is the most I think it's your personal, it's a you side of things, the bear, because this is the only time in my lifetime I've been sort of vaguely aware of U.S. politics since sometime in the 90s, when I heard my parents like complain about the Clintons and Waco and all this other kind of stuff. And all the way to today, this is the first time where I'm feeling like there's appetite in the air for change. And crypto is a big part of that. Just like now all of a sudden you have all this money. Now all of a sudden you have people who are like really not happy with capital gains. Not just a few super wealthy investors who already know how to like shuffle their fiat investments around. Now it's like the everyman is like, what the hell? You were doing this the whole time? Insane. And there's real appetite for change right now. And just the fact that the omnibus bill got like axed because, Spaceman tweeted a bunch, like 180 times in a single day or whatever it was, it shows there's an appetite for change. So yeah.
There is. I think it was Steve Patterson, right, the co-author of Hijacking Bitcoin. He was on a solar report. I was watching that over the weekend, and he mentioned something about how, we're currently in an informational dark age, and I totally agree with that. And there's people are hungry for the change. So the question is, do they know what that change is? And do they know where it stems from and why? And that's the part I don't think everybody has a clear picture on. So the politicians or, our rulers have a way of delivering a message that may sound, really nice, but like everything, there's a trade-off. And what are they trading to get it? That's the part that I'm just, I'm just super bare right now. I found that I was much more optimistic with the idea of camel face being present, because then it's just like I knew what to expect, or at least I had a better idea. And then this one, I was like, I have no clue. I don't know what's
uncertainty can be scary. But here's the thing. One thing you notice when there's chaos, like if there's an economic collapse or if there's a war especially, all kinds of nonsense gets shuffled around in there behind the scenes, and then you're stuck with it for a generation or a few. It's so
Yep.
this is a great reshuffling is coming up, and it's a crisis. It's also an opportunity. It's let's just see who manages to shuffle some things in while things are moving. Like when you're an immovable object, you don't get anything done. But then when things are
Right.
moving around, you can let me get this thing in here. Really, there's no capital gains in crypto. Let's get this in. Like those kinds of things. Oh, we got the
Yeah.
nerd girl. Hey, how's it going?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey, welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Merry
Hey.
Christmas, by the way. It's Christmas over here, so
Is it? Okay, it's Christmas now?
for us, well, Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're looking lovely today. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Yes, I know the whole camera thing can be a little bit like I just try my very best not to look like a bloated jellyfish on this thing, and sometimes it doesn't work out super well. Fun fact: I did one time join I had some interview scheduled with some crypto YouTuber who was like way bigger than me, and I lost track of time. I showered like 12 minutes before I was supposed to get on, and so I was all pink and bloated and sweaty and whatever, and it just did not look good. And I'm just like, oh, this lady must think I'm a lunatic, and she was
You
probably
came
right.
out looking like a boiled lobster.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
funny. Yeah, I don't remember when you guys asked me about this because I was like, I don't usually say yes to like Monday morning 7 a.m.
it's the holiday stuff. Is it actually 7 for you?
Not anymore, but when you messaged me it was.
Nice. Well, sorry about that. What
That's
time is it
okay.
where you're at, Mr. Rare?
It's about 12:30 a.m.
Yeah. So we got all the time zones all over the place. I thought that I'd get like the people whose time zones would make sense, but now it's apparently the people whose time zones make the least sense are the ones who actually showed up right now. So that's funny. We might get another joiner in just a couple minutes, but let me just roll the intro to get this thing going officially because we've been rambling for literally half an hour about, mostly taxes, which is, I know everyone loves those. All right, intro time. 3, 2, 1, go. So, hey everyone, and new entrant Jeremy, how's it going? Right in the intro, welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown. This is episode, I don't even know, it's a unmarked, it's not a canonically ordered episode. It's the Christmas special, 2024. And I'm joined by an odd collection of people today, I'm sure, but mostly, first and foremost, of course, the rarest of passengers. How's it going, man?
Hey, what's going on, dude?
And then Nerd Girl, how's it going over there?
It's good. It's good. Early. Sorry, no camera.
Yeah, that's fine. And then the one and only Jeremy. There's no other people called Jeremy in the world. This is the one. How's it going, man?
I actually troll all my Uber drivers with that when I get in and they're like, "Are you Jeremy?" And I'm like the only one in the world, and they always love
Yes.
that. So you can try that with your Uber drivers.
Yes. Well, guess what? I'm definitely not the only Joel. There's a bunch of French people, for one, called Joel. There's a bunch of ladies called Joel. In fact, one of my best friends when I lived in Arizona, her name was Joelle, and she looked, she had the same complexion and hair color as me, too, which made things even more confusing. But yeah, so not that, I don't know anyone else called Rare, but I know that's not your name anyway, so.
It's very rare, so
Yeah, it's not very common.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Don't. You guys can just delete this chat now.
Yeah, dad jokes in full effect. So no agenda for today. This is just like a good vibes, any fun stuff you wanted to talk about, any rants you want to talk about, all that kind of a stuff. I do have a few of my things queued up just in case, but feel free to, again, not in this actual chat window, because then it'll pop up on the screen, all these ugly links. But in other DM forums, feel free to throw any links you think that I absolutely should throw up, or feel free to throw none and just roll with it. So let me get the shill out of the way first, just because it is an important thing to keep the BCH rolling into my budgets, which is very nice. So this podcast is very proudly sponsored by Coin ATM Radar. When buying crypto with cash, an ATM is much more reliable than meeting some random person in a random place. And unlike an exchange, which could freeze your account, you truly own all the crypto you buy. With Coin ATM Radar, you can find crypto ATMs and other services where you can buy or sell cryptos for cash. On their website, search by coin, address, if that ATM supports selling as well as buying, and you can also search by geographical area like country, state, city, and you can compare actual current fees at different ATMs, at least ATM fees, not network fees, because otherwise that would get really messy. If you want to find out more, go to coinatmradar.com, which is coinatmradar.com. And one of these days, I'm going to have the whole group read out in unison the spelling of the thing. Give me a C.
Are we?
Oh.
So we're gonna carol this or something?
Coin ATM Radar. No. I don't know. If I had some more planning rehearsal, I'll do something like that. I have started a show, not this podcast, but I've started a show before with a little ukulele song, a little sing along. So that will not be this time, but a future time maybe. All right. So happy Christmas time. I hope you all are having a good one. How's the vibe right now? Does it feel like it's Bearmas? Do you feel like it's Bullmas? Do you feel like it's who gives a crap? I'm with my family in this. Like, what are some hot takes on that?
I'll say right now. I mean, it's very Christmas spirit around these parts, which is really refreshing for me. Haven't seen snow in a good long while, and hell yeah, I don't mind freezing my ass off right now. So I'm happy. Not even paying attention to the markets right now on any of this stuff. The occasional, blip on the radar to make me question things even more so, but overall, pretty cheerful.
I'm super bullish, but that's just because I'm an optimistic guy. I'm very rarely not bullish. I'm a little bullish on the price of crypto. I'm usually bearish on that, actually. But I'm bullish on that. I'm bullish on 2025. It's going to be a freaking amazing year. 2024 was an amazing year. BCH did great. Crypto realized that Bitcoin had been hijacked. Like, it just all went great, really. So
ongoing.
There was it is ongoing, but you get some credit for that. I have to come in and give Joel a credit. He's done some banger Twitter posts. Really, those long form ones. I'm going to need to get some advice from you on how you go viral with those, because you're doing a great job. El Salvador is a wreck, but there's some good things so that, people don't note you in the comments like, oh, no, but what about this one good thing? You have to throw them a bone. I get that. Mm-hmm. That was great. The one about the block rewards and all that, you already perfectly had it there, and then you can link back to it. Credibility through the roof. Great job.
Thank you very much. And despite things were finally starting to go smoothly now, I realized that this chat window we're in, the Brave Talk, limits to 4 participants, and we have a stranded Bcasher who cannot get in. So I'm going to message you all a link to join over, and then I'll do a little waiting screen, and you can just join the unlimited one. We got capped at 1 megabyte. This is not good for the holiday season. Let's migrate over. So yeah, keep talking amongst yourselves while I get the new link going, and then we'll switch just over to that. But yeah, like that's the thing is like, Brave Talk is good, and the problem, it's basically their own hosted version of Jitsi, but then they charge if you want more people. So, yeah.
You love Jitsi. I'm missing the Jitsi.
You're not a Jitster.
Well, I am when I talk to you. That's the thing. That's how I know it. You just like you're my one Jitsi friend, just like I'm everyone's one crypto friend. It's like chain reaction of that one friend.
Do you have actual friends anymore? Like you don't just have all crypto friends now?
You know, see, that's the thing. It's a bit of like a, Venn diagram that's like shrinking on itself over time. It's like some of them, they don't get it, so they're out. Yeah, that's true. That does happen. And then some of them, they realize, wait a second, Jeremy was right. That takes them usually a long time. But I do try and maintain a few good friends that are not deep in crypto very deliberately, because I think it's important to have perspective, because then sometimes I tell them about something and they're like, Jeremy, this doesn't matter to anyone. Nobody cares. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a good reality check, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so some people are starting to jump over to the other link. Let me just waiting screen for a second, and then we'll get over there. All right, hold on a second. Bum, bum.
Oh, hey, Callisti.
Here we go. So we're
There you
actually back live with Callisti's joining. We needed him. Now I
Hey,
need to make
it's
sure
Rare.
I
What's up?
get the nerd girl back in here, because that would be sad if I just kicked her out. We just swapped it out, all for nothing.
Kind of right. Sounds like a downgrade to me.
Well, but at the same
Dude,
time, you
let's
also
stop
had your
talking
camera
about
on.
downgrades right now. It's that's been like a word that's trending on my timeline. It's nothing crypto related either. It was a James Gunn's Superman trailer popped off, and
Oh,
that's just everyone's just talking about the downgrade of the costume, the downgrade of the storyline, just all of them. Just like, dude, this is the last good action flick for comic books that's probably going to happen, and then we're back in the dark ages. Yeah,
we're probably already there. It's okay. Like, one thing that I've been a movie aficionado for a while, and the last 5 to 10 years, it's just been like dropping off because I just had stuff going on. The significant other is not super movie person, so it's like, all right, we just do other things, and so all that stuff, and it's coincided with the collapse of Hollywood. And so now I don't feel like, oh man, I'm missing all these good movies. I'm just like, all I get is the headlines about movies that are just like comically bad, and for me, I'm just like, because I don't have to watch them, I'm just popcorn. You're just watching.
Oh, dude, I'm in it. I'm watching it. Like, I've been calling this since 2012, right? Like, this entire industry is going to just implode on itself. I thought it was going to be financially, but it's culturally, which is just significantly worse, which is perfect. I love it. Just watch the whole thing crash and burn. And then I have people texting me, calling me like, oh God, the studio's closing. I don't have any work. I don't know what I'm going to do. It's like, you should have stuck up and said something, or not work on that project, or not do this. And, the other part too, we're speaking about friends in the crypto space and non-crypto space. You would have thought that, hey, get into this crypto world as well. Stop taking fiat for your job because you're not getting paid well. No, that stuff's a scam. Everyone's broke. And so,
yeah,
sorry,
but the market provided, though, right? The market determined that they would stay broke, and there you go. Like, as far as everyone you've told me from your industry, your Hollywood industry, who has lost money, I peak NGMI. Like, I don't. It doesn't seem like don't feel bad for a single one of them.
No, so it's really bad when it gets to crew, right? So I'm not on the live action. I'm in animation, so it's really bad for the animators, artists, designers, especially because of outsourcing, globalism for workforce, and AI. That's just eating everything up. With the actors, on the live action side, and we'll go with we'll start with the crew for live action. Like they also have just a terrible time,
Mm-hmm.
uh, especially when prices in California and everywhere else go up, or they start relocating to different jurisdictions to shoot. The actors too. Not everybody's making Robert Downey Jr. money, and especially with some of the deals that they get, they'd be lucky if they get any type of residual right. And I remember first time the first time they used AI to put Carrie Fisher's face on. I
Oh,
think it was
is it
The
Rogue
Force
One?
Awakens or whatever. Yeah, probably Rogue One. But everybody was up in arms and screaming. The reading was fantastic because it's right there, writing on the wall. We're done.
Which is, you know, what's funny about that is, who are they going to take a job away from? Carrie Fisher? Wasn't she dead? So
Yeah, she was dead like a couple years, I think, at
yeah,
that point.
and then they just animate her face like, "Hey, yeah, you can't do that." I was going to like fake being Carrie Fisher, but totally not be her instead. Like, damn. But yeah, the handwriting on
Yeah,
the wall
or
is kind
was
of
it?
important.
Well, I mean, it's a big cultural shift in the industry, which is probably going to trickle down into the rest of society and politics as well.
Of course.
Um, yeah, I mean, very, very Breitbart type of perspective, right? Of where politics is downstream from culture. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to pay attention to that industry, especially in music, right? Music and film. That's going to tell us a lot about what we see in the coming decade.
Yeah, for sure. Well, speaking of shift and downstream and everything, I'm gonna throw out my own shill for the El Salvador article I wrote. Just bang that out quickly. Basically, the resolution of the El Salvador experiment. And there's
Love
nothing.
that title.
Yes,
Banger title. That's a
it's
deep
not.
cut.
So for those who don't, a lot of people watching this will get the reference, but not everyone. So that harkens back to the early days of 2016, like January 2016, I believe, when Mike Hearn, one of the early Bitcoin developers, wrote something called The Resolution of the Bitcoin Experiment, where he called the block size war problems. He saw everything coming, and then he basically just said, "There's no Bitcoin's useless now. I'm leaving." He rage quit, kind of. And I remember at the time when I read that, I was just like, big crybaby. Like, nah, it's going to work out. What are you doing? It works great now. And then within a year, I was like not using Bitcoin anymore. So I guess he was more right than me. But anyway, the point, I think the article's okay. It's not necessarily like you don't have to rush to read it or anything. It's more just the headline of El Salvador's legal tender thing is over. It's just done. And before I take all the air in the room, I'll let some other people chime in on this one because this is a fun one.
I
I
haven't
think
been
there
to El
was
Salvador, so I don't know.
yeah, I think it's I don't know. I kind of feel relieved, especially hearing about like, okay, if they're going to take this IMF loan, you got to dismantle the Chivo wallet. Yes, that's a great boon for people. I think it shows that top-down, policies rarely work. Especially, I mean, people naturally are gonna revolt on something like that. So I don't know. It's a net positive. The other thing I think it helps to put things in perspective is that Bukele is not the president of Bitcoin, right? He's the president of El Salvador, and politicians are going to politic. They got to do what's in the best interest of their country, uh, and that doesn't always mean it's going to favor your favorite coin or token or whatever. So I think it helped humble some people on that. I don't know. For me, that was bullish. That's a bullish bid.
Yeah. So one thing that's interesting about that when you say he's not the president of Bitcoin, yes, he's got a country to run, and I'm very suspicious of the man for a lot of reasons, but cast aside suspicion, just say he's good faith. He used this as a tool to help his country out, supposedly. And then when his country wants that big, fat, sweet, sweet fiat loan, he just like, screw your Bitcoin adoption kind of thing. Like it makes, and I don't blame him for that. That's the thing. It's not like, you capitulated, you idiot. It's like, no, I get it. Like we live in the real world. And he's like, oh, buying so much Bitcoin is going up so much, but you do need money for stuff. And it's like, allegedly, they bought a ton of Bitcoin after they got the loan. So, but it is kind of interesting to see like the adoption kind of thing, because this is kind of like this is kind of an ongoing capitulation sort of step, because I remember, Bitcoin is doing great. Everyone loved Bitcoin. Scaling problems happened. A lot of people called you really applauded the scaling problems there, Jeremy. I see you clapping when we mentioned
That's it. I got some flyers bouncing around.
Yeah. So that whole thing happened, and then Bitcoin kind of like went on that. Well, we're waiting for L2 scaling, specifically Lightning, to like come around. It's gonna be fine. And then when that came around, they really pulled out all the hype stops, and that's something that I think is very, very interesting to see how far they were just like ready for that to happen. And then we start to hit up. Then El Salvador was like, "Oh my gosh, see, look, everyone's gonna be spending Bitcoin." And then that kind of like, problems. People don't want to do it. Only foreigners, whatever. And then now it's just like IMF's like, "You're not getting the money." Boom. They just punted it out the window. So there you go.
Yeah, well, this just seemed like a long time coming, at the time when it was all starting up, and saying that, like I was saying, okay, this is not really going to work out, and then of course you get flooded with people. No, it's all working. It's just early stage. We're still figuring it out, but it's going to be great. Blah blah. And you're like, no, these are fundamental problems. We've seen this story a bunch of times. It's not going to work out, and then lo and behold, it doesn't work out. But by then, that's what all this stuff is based around, just delaying people, like delaying crypto adoption. It's just as long as you can create some new hoax. That's my new word for this year that I've picked up from Scott Adams. It's just a hoax. As long as you can create the appearance that something is being done and maybe it's going to work out and all that, then you can just keep the people not making any real progress, right? And so that's basically what El Salvador was. And of course, all the people who jumped on that train, and now 2 years later, 3 years later, deleting their tweets or rationalizing it some way or sweeping it under the rug or saying it was just another classic. It's just one effort in a decentralized ecosystem. That's another great thing. Oh, we did tons of effort into this, but it didn't work out. Well, it's decentralized. We've got lots of other good things cooking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Have you ever followed the work of Whitney Webb and Mark Goodwin and Greg Reese? I mean,
a little bit.
I think Steve Patterson was also saying a lot. I mean, there's some pretty heavy hitting conspiracies on this one that fits in with the hijacking narrative. And, reading back on all of this stuff, it's like, dude, this thing has probably been in the works for some time, like probably since E-Money, or E-Gold or whatever. But I mean, it failed. Did it really fail, or was this like another, step in a process to continue to, tighten the reins in a little bit more? Don't know, but definitely one thing's for sure is it's changed. Things are not what they seem. Hoax is the appropriate word for this.
But I think it's just so good because we had in BCH, we had the St. Kitts thing, and that's still going, and there is some adoption there. And like even some guy went recently and he was posting in the Telegram, I just bought some stuff with BCH. There's a bit of organic adoption going on there. But we had the conference in 2022 and we like nearly got legal tender over the line, and then it was like all the shadowy forces emerged to like fuck around with stuff behind the scene and torpedo it, right? And so it was only a matter of time before, I mean, honestly, I think that was just already in control in El Salvador to begin with. So I'm not surprised that it ended up this way. But even if they hadn't been, it was clearly just like going to be the next one on the list that they just found their way over to. So.
Yeah, and that's another thing. I have not really heard very much from the whole St. Kitts thing for BCH in a long time. And I haven't yet had the opportunity to go over there and check it out for myself. A friend of mine, though, did just message me, I think last night, about El Salvador. And he basically said, FYI, I was in El Salvador 3 weeks ago. He says, it's not quite what I expected in terms of Bitcoin adoption. In many cases, I'd go as far as to say that the locals actively broke the law right in front of me by denying me service if I insisted on paying in BTC, which is supposed to be ordained legal tender in the country. Locals don't like BTC, and they don't like foreigners there very much either. I get it. Like, that's...
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
a thing. I think that Bukele is a smart person, and I think that he did all this big grandiose stuff to like be cool for the foreigners to get foreign investment and stuff. And then also at some point he realizes like the people are like annoyed now. And he's like, look, I'm gonna dump that. Like, it wasn't doing, we did our advertising, we got our investment, I'm gonna dump that. We can still buy Bitcoin and have more money for the government. So that seems to be how
Probably. I mean, it's just human nature to go against what they're told, right? I don't want to be pushed. You don't want to be pushed, right? If you're being coerced into it, you definitely will feel that, whether it's direct or indirect. And I think El Salvador is a case study in that. Like, people could feel and sense coercion, like they're having to do something that they're not comfortable doing. And I think that's the case with a lot of people. I mean, sure, crypto, for us in this room, like, we understand why it's important to us and what it means. But I think, what is it? Only 4% of the globe has touched crypto, right? So you're still looking at 96% of the planet that still it's so skeptical and doesn't understand it. It probably won't.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, how many people understand, like, what that means in terms of their livelihood. Like, if the idea of them being responsible and self-reliant is not a popular thing still.
Yeah.
Despite all the fuckery that's happened,
Yeah, and I haven't been to El Salvador, anywhere in South America, but I did grow up in Mexico and kind of got a lot more sense of, there's the Latin American regions have been under, there's just a lot of nonsense they've had to deal with over the years. It's a lot of, like, first of all, like, native populations colonized, and they're still kind of there, unlike in like the Anglo parts of like North America, and just like generations of being sort of like of resilience, but of being beaten down over and over and over, and they're just like trying to eke out a living. And then as a tourist area, right, like Latin America is, has a lot of like great weather, great beaches, let's see the pyramids, people coming in. And like, if there's tourism to the US, for example, or even Western Europe, it's a lot of like, first world developed people coming to another first world developed country. So there's a little bit more of like an equality type thing. It's just like, oh, these are people like me, but from a different country. But then you get to like people struggling to make a living, selling arepas on the side of the street or whatever the hell. And then there's just these weird, like almost like alien people showing up. It's just like coming in and like, oh, I want to use this Bitcoin. What the hell is this Bitcoin? I don't even have a phone that works. Like, what are you talking about? And just like, I very much understand that like skepticism and just like, can you just give me freaking dollars so I can like go back to my literal dirt floored house? Like, many friends of mine I had growing up didn't have floors. Like, yeah, sure. Like, I understand that they just don't want to mess with this. And then it's almost like, screw this like corrupt politician dude who everyone still likes probably, but screw him. Like, they like that he cleaned up the crime, but then they're like, screw this guy for like airdropping a bunch of gringos in here trying to make us use fancy tech that we don't have infrastructure to do. And just like, I guess we'll put up with it.
Well,
but,
well, think of it this way, right? I mean, some crypto bros are the equivalent of a Johnny Somali, in Japan and Korea. So there's it's like a cultural clash that I don't think is mixing very well. That's something that's definitely got to get improved on. All right, all these first world. I mean, I don't even know if first world is the correct word anymore for people who got into crypto earlier. But okay, you have this uber first world person coming into a developing nation,
Mm-hmm.
and just mannerisms, expectations, all of it's so different. It's like oil and water trying to blend in. It's like, hey, I want you to use my gold coin, dude. I'm still using seashells. I mean, I don't know how I can get this tamale to you. What the fuck is this? Shiny piece of metal gonna do me?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's there's a delta between crypto people in crypto and people still in fiat, and it gets wider and wider every year. At least that's my observation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to close that gap.
Yeah, and especially in the terms of El Salvador, where it gets mandated, and then it's also all of a sudden you have this shocking, like this influx of foreigners who weren't there before, and then they're all trying to use the Lightning Network, and it just like it couldn't be something that just worked and is easy to use. It had to be the most nightmarish crypto system possible, and there's just all these people who also there's their first time using a Lightning wallet was when they left Gringo Stan and came down there to try to like spend it, and like they don't know what they're doing either, but it's like they're not even like, oh no, it's okay. Like anytime I try to spend at some merchant and they don't know what's going on, I can show, okay, the wallet's glitching. Here's a block explorer. Here's how it went through. Or like, oh, I just press this button here. Just do that. It works. But then you have someone who doesn't even know how to use this stuff saying, hey, I want to use this. And like, I don't know either. You don't know. And now it's just like, my entire vacation is because of this. You ungrateful peasant. You better make it work. And it's the law, or I'll call, Max Kaiser on you or whatever. Like, I can understand how just like, man, screw these people. Get out of my country. Like, I completely understand that vibe.
What was it Steve Patterson said on that?
What was that? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just asking. I don't really I wasn't following this super closely just because I don't know, El Salvador is really far away and I don't really mess with Bitcoin. But like, why? I guess isn't part of the problem that when people were given the Bitcoin, it was given to them at like a really high rate, and then it continually dropped from where they were given that. So isn't the perception kind of that this is more volatile than our fiat currency? Why would we adopt this?
Yeah, as far as I know, everyone got signed up to the Chivo wallet, and everyone got airdropped like $50 worth of Bitcoin in their custodial wallet, and they had ATMs around the country.
So
yeah, go ahead.
So what happened was, so when they had the Chivo wallet, if you signed up, you would get $30 worth of Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. And the thing is that, when a population doesn't have any idea what it is, they're just like, oh, I get free money. And then they went to go cash out like immediately. So
long lines at the ATM.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty wild. It's just they have no idea what to do with it. And I was going to say something about this. Steve Patterson said this over the weekend. He was just like, "It's funny how we're in 2024 and people still don't know how this stuff works. Like it's not that much different. In fact, it's probably worse than when it was 2014."
Yeah,
dude, this is crazy. I don't know. That's why I feel like with El Salvador, like these people don't, that the native, El Salvadorian doesn't know what to do with it. There's not a lot of, merchant adoption or services or whatever. And the products that they're using, are trash. So this is just, everything is just, shit sandwich. It's stacking up constantly.
Yeah. And there's bound to be like a collapse from that. And I feel like there's been all kinds of that kind of stuff in the BTC world specifically, where you've had a bunch of assumptions and like poor assumptions, sketchy tech, things like that have just stacked and then is just falling away. And the one thing that is not falling away is pump, where the prices still continue to do well over long term. And I think that a lot of nations and a lot of big investors, a lot of things like that, like Bukele, Saylor, all them, have realized, you know what, this is where it's at, is just buying this stuff and then hoping it goes up. And so that's kind of what El Salvador's migrated to. Now, I'd like to I'd like to see how that works out for them, because it seems like, based on what the government has bought, they have more than if they had kept it in US dollars by a decent margin. And I guess that's good. I hope they didn't extra tax people to do that, in which case it's just the state enriching itself off the backs of the people even more. I hope it was just with existing funds. They just kept buying it or whatever. But at what point are they going to sell some of it or spend some of it to give back to the people, or to be able to lower taxes, be like, oh, guess what? We have this giant fat Bitcoin reserve that now we can just like give everyone like a 5-year tax holiday and just live off of Bitcoin the whole time, or something cool like that.
Yeah.
I'd hope that they could do something nice out of that.
And probably when Bitcoin's sitting at like 3-5 million a coin,
Mm-hmm.
it's a weird thing watching that solar report, with Patterson on there.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about Howard Lutnick and his evaluation of like all the U.S. Land and mineral rights, and something to the tune of like 500 trillion, and then they want to capture 0.25% of that, through tokenization of all of those resources. And the math that they're putting comes up to about like a $3 to $5 million per Bitcoin, right? So you pump up and you run up the price, stack your bags. I think they call it collateral fraud, right? That's what this former prosecutor was saying. It's like, oh, this is something that we've seen before. We're going to wait and watch. So who knows? Maybe El Salvador is like, hey, we'll wait till this thing gets to like, 7 figures, and then start buying some land and resources and other things globally. I don't know, but if that's true, that is to me fucking scary. And then B, like, where do you go from here? Because it changes the nature and dialogue, and changes everything. Like, it's a totally different world, and I don't know if that's I don't know what that looks like, man. There's a lot of uncertainty. I'm a fudster right now. Fuck it, I'm gonna own that one. Fuck it. It's just...
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes. I mean, the one thing that I will remain, I guess, not a hater on, because everyone thinks, you're just a salty hater who dumped his BTC in 2016, and some of that might be true. But part of the it seems like the one thing that's undeniable is if you buy a scarce asset versus a non-scarce asset, it tends to do, all other things being equal, it tends to do better over a long period of time. And I think that it's kind of like the buying Bitcoin is kind of like we can't figure out anything else in crypto. None of the other tech, none of the other use cases, but we have figured out that this limited supply thing is something good to buy, because there you go. And Bitcoin's a proxy for the rest of crypto, where people are like, oh, look, I can buy a trusted digital asset that's decentralized technically, and it's scarce and limited, and there you go. We just start with that. I don't like the whole, like, whenever you hear like, oh, Microsoft's gonna buy, Amazon's gonna buy, well, I like that a lot better than I like governments buying, because I don't want the government to have more money. I don't want them to have more money at all. But like, strategic Bitcoin reserve or whatever. At least companies.
I mean,
yes.
I mean, it's what is it? It's like the biggest heist in history, right? So the corporations and the high net worth individuals who own a fuck ton of Bitcoin, and the tether pump, if it all turns out to be true, I mean, they're going to be the nouveau feudal lords that we're all paying, for water rights, when we need to take a shower, flush the toilet after we shit. So, I mean, in that regard, it's like, yep, Bitcoin is no longer currency. It definitely has that financial asset to it. I mean, it just changes. I don't know, man. That's all I can say is it changes things. I can't even figure out what that looks like. The whole concept of P2P cash is still very near and dear, and it works for other coins and tokens. But like we were saying earlier, in the little pre-show rambling, that, if we all agree that, the state is force and It's not something to just LARP about online. It's like you got to expect that there's going to be some measure to protect their bag, one way or another. And I think it's something to take into consideration, like really, really seriously. I just don't know what that looks like, which is really puzzling to me. Yeah, still scratching my head.
It's kind of, isn't this the wildest education, the crypto space? Because you get to see basically the way things are done get remade before our eyes, and not just money, but like everything. People do everything is being redone before our eyes, and because it's being redone, it's not just, we're not upgrading fiat systems or legacy systems. We're like remaking them from scratch almost. And in the remaking them from scratch, you kind of get to get a start to finish education on literally all of human society, kind of. Because you're not just like, oh, you're in this industry, upgrade to the latest version. It's like, nope, you're reimagining the way you do money, the way you do data, the way you do contracts and law, the way you do governance, the way you do everything. And then you start to think about, like, how did we do it before? How is that messed up? Was that good? I don't know. And just, there's a lot of like that, staring at like the raindrops going down the windows in silence kind of moments in crypto of just like, I don't know, man.
I feel like we're just staring into the abyss, and eventually it's going to look back right at us with glowing eyes, and we're going to be like, oh shit, what the fuck did we just do? What kind of hell did we open with Pandora's box?
Yeah. Mate, you're not feeling it this year. You are really just like
Christmas spirit
off the edge. You're like, oh, they're all gonna come and fucking wreck us in the future. Like, that's not happening. You're saying, what does it look like when the government tries to stop crypto? That's what we've been watching. We've been watching history play out. Don't worry, they don't have like 10 other layers of weapons stockpiled in the back room. They're already using them all right now. So we've already seen it. We've seen FTX. We've seen the exchanges getting sabotaged. We've seen Craig Wright. We've seen El Salvador scams. We've seen propaganda. We've seen everything under the sun, right? That we already know. Like, the headwind is not going to keep getting stronger. It's actually getting weaker as time goes on, So
I want to, dude, I am trying so hard to like take that in. But I guess when you just seen like how fucked up things can get, and this is just, I don't do a lot of politics, in general, but you get a little too close to that, to seeing how the sausage is made, and sometimes you're just like, dude, no, I have to be very, very reserved on this one. Let's just say that my dealings with certain individuals have led me to believe that things go a lot deeper than what we imagine, and I put a pause on that. I'm just very, 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 very cautious at this point. That's my thing. Everyone's euphoric, and I want that hopium so fucking bad. I really do. But maybe it's just been the idea, like, we've been fighting for so long, right? Just trying to make change, and we don't even know what winning looks like. I could totally be on that side too. But yeah, I mean, I want to accept it. I'm trying to internalize that best as I can, man. Feed me, man.
Here, let me explain. So the way it works, the reason that for the last 15 years, FUD against crypto in general has failed, is very simple, which is not a lot of people understand, is that the crypto industry has 365 days a year to fight the battle for crypto. We do. And the bad guys, they have like 5 to 10, The government is like, oh shit, we got to regulate this crypto bill. What are we going to do? Debate this in parliament a little bit, Everyone comes in, there's chaos. And then 3 days later, it's like, oh shit, the debt ceiling. Oh shit, something else is trending on Twitter. The healthcare system, the whatever, right? It's all like piling in on them. And meanwhile, the crypto industry is like, okay, good, glad they fucked off for a while. Now let's just keep making some progress, right? So year after year after year, crypto is just winning because everyone who's in crypto is aligned 365 days a year every day to do crypto. And everyone who doesn't like it has a lot of other problems. Crypto is one problem, but eventually or most of the time, they have their eye off the ball, and so then it just keeps, sneaking forward, right? It's the same thing with all the other bad, evil people and shit that goes on in the world politics.
Sure, but here's the thing: you say we have 365 days. True, right? It's constantly around the clock. They do too. Just because the markets are closed doesn't mean that they stop.
No, but they're not fighting crypto the whole time. They're fighting something else.
They could care less about how crypto works, right, on the technical side, because all of that, it functions.
It's not the technical side.
No. A lot of it is the social engineering of people and how they want things to go, and that machine is also running 365.
Yes, but if you're the reptiles, you have to spend 100 days a year lining up your COVID scam and psyop, and then you have to spend a while lining up your depopulation, and then you have to spend a while on your destroying the food base.
You have to spend some time out in the sun getting warmed up because you cool down a little too much.
They go on holidays too, man. They go on the fucking cruise ship once in a while.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that sorry, Calista, you've been trying to talk. I should shut up.
Yeah. All it takes is one omnibus bill to just do, like, they don't care. They don't read those things, So it's like, oh yeah, they've got 5 days to do it. They just write this 2,000-page bill that just on 3 of the pages it bans crypto for life,
Yeah.
But then you can't enforce it.
Well, the thing with crypto is, first of all, I think that Jeremy's characterization is very true of like the first 14 years or whatever of crypto, where just people were building, governments every once in a while thought about it and then went back to their shit. And now crypto is at this globally significant stage where now it's kind of too late to ban it, but it also is not doing entirely its own thing either. So now this is the we are winning / we have won stage, but it's also the most dangerous stage we've ever been, because now crypto is a thing. It's not will it be a thing? It is a thing. And now everyone around the world is figuring out, how can I make this thing serve my interests? And so, for example, we're seeing in the U.S. election cycle, which of course you had El Salvador and then I guess St. Kitts and then Panama and some other places being like, let me just like put my finger on the scale of crypto and push it in one direction, and then I get to like get in on the ground floor of this new thing. I get to be the crypto president, and then when crypto is huge, I get all this power. And then you kind of see that with like the U.S. election, where a bunch of crypto people are like, you know what? We're tired of Gensler just taking a steaming dump on our heads every single day. Let's just like screw his side of things as hard as we can by jumping on with the teabag train, and choo-choo, you get through, you win. And now that they're winning, now it's like that side. Sure, crypto as a whole is kind of winning, but it's going to win in a very specific way. And like, for example, all the people like Brian Armstrong, the Winklevoss twins, the, Jesse Powell, and all those like robber barons of crypto, whatever you want to call them, they all get to decide crypto policy in a way that favors them and the text that they kind of implement. And for example, I know there's so many L2s that are involved that have a lot of investments from those people. And is there just going to be a complete free market of whatever? Or are they going to make sure that laws and things favor their scaling solution thing because they have a lot of money in that? And so crypto is going to become... It's like a natural resource at this point. It just is a idea, a resource like the internet. Who does the internet help? Who does the internet benefit? Well, radical freedom all over the world, largely. And then, of course, you get the NSA. And then you get all these intelligence agencies and like the Orwellian spy state that they're just like, okay, this freedom tech, we're going to use it for our purposes. And then Snowden has to go hide out in Russia forever and stuff to whistleblow about that. And the same thing's going to happen with crypto, or is happening, where elements get captured, are already captured. Other countries will leverage it for their own benefits. Other ones will try to ban it and realize they can't, and then find their own way. Well, only CBDCs in this thing. It always has to be central bank approved crypto or whatever. And this other place is going to be, and then people are going to be like, oh, like let's all use Monero, and then like signal to all the biggest idiot criminals in the world and honeypot them all and just use that as a dragnet to arrest a bunch of people. And then there's just like, it's just we're in the mix now. We're part of global politics. It is what it is, and it's not all rosy, but it's not all terrible either. It's very uncertain.
Yeah,
so be very careful during this time. We got to figure out where we fit in the grand scheme of things.
Right. I mean, I'm not saying like I'm hyper bearish or whatever. For me, it's just trying to manage my own expectations on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It is just there's so much enthusiasm all around, and then when you're seeing so you have was it David Sachs of the world, and then some new guy to the throne, right? It's like they're all pushing for their own policy at the end of the day. Great, fine. How's that going to work? And then maybe it's also me being a bitter gold bug, right? And seeing how all that stuff worked out, for the gold community back in the day.
Yeah, it's like if Peter Schiff ate a grizzly bear over here.
Yeah, but I mean, there's just lessons, that I hope we don't forget, and history does, show us how things can work out, right? Crypto's just another iteration of what people have been trying to do, whenever things get really bad and tyrannical. And I think maybe studying up on that more would probably help bring a little bit more optimism to this Christmas season.
Yeah, speaking of that, I'm gonna have to go in a minute, but Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy New Year. Don't worry, crypto is winning. It's difficult, I get it, but that's the name of the game, right? It wouldn't be fun if we won too easily,
listen,
right?
Some of us
wouldn't go down the history books.
Some of us are already getting a little tired of winning,
Wow. I love that dance as well too.
It's so
what a bowler. How do you created his own dance as well. Gosh.
He created that whole phrase just saying sad. Like that's like
I use it constantly, unfortunately. I wish a lot of people wish I wouldn't. But yeah, so because Jeremy, you're gonna take off sooner than anyone, what are you most grateful for this year specifically? Like, obviously, there's other
hijacking Bitcoin. That is just like the nuclear bomb of like crypto adoption. Exactly. You've got it in the background there. I'm giving away at least one copy for Christmas. And that has just, I read it start to finish and I was like, interested to see if I learned anything. I didn't learn a single thing. There was not one quote or article or different little thing in there that I hadn't read literally at the time when it came out, But the impact was just titanic because I've lived this for fucking 10 or 11 years. And so to me, it was just like, this happened. But to so many other people, they didn't know that. They had never seen it put together from A to Z like that. They'd never seen it just clearly explained, or they'd been propagandized or only got half the story or whatever. And just the fact that they wrote that, it's like the Bitcoin Bible. You now have the white paper and then you have hijacking Bitcoin. And if you read those two things, you can kind of, get crypto 85% of the way there in like a couple of hours. And that has just been massive. Now it's in other languages. It's just that is going to be in history recognized as a turning point for when all the propaganda and psyops and stuff started to truly fall apart. So Roger Ver, Steve Patterson knocked it out of the park. Roger's just the main character of crypto, and he did it again this year. Every year, he finds a way to get the job done.
Yeah,
love it. That was it. Thanks for hijacking Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's been the surprise because Roger seeded the crypto movement as a whole. Like, wouldn't be anywhere near here without Bitcoin Jesus. He fought for it, and then he had his like villain arc where he was just like, causing everyone's happy because things are going well. He's the fly in everyone's soup. Everyone's pissed off at him. Not everyone, but a bunch of people are. He's maligned as Bitcoin Judas, and he's like, oh, he started Bitcoin, whatever. He joins the Bitcoin Cash community, and then becomes like Judas or whatever to the the BSVers who break off, and then now he's like enemy number one of them, and then the e-cashers break off, and to their credit, I haven't really heard them be like really nasty to Roger. I think they've had their disagreements and that's it. Whatever, it's fine. But then like all this stuff, and then he like goes away. He had some personal issues he was dealing with, which I'm not aware of, and even if I was, I wouldn't find it worthy to talk about. But all this stuff, and then he just comes back with a book about what I would say largely irrelevant topics today, somehow makes it relevant again, and then boom, he disappears for a while. Oh no, they're out to get him. They arrested him. And then like now he's just like he's trying to stay out of prison, which is a fantastic thing to do. Let's hope this guy does not go to prison and get extradited. But even in doing that, because he's still Roger, he cannot help but just Bitcoin was hijacked, or hijacking Bitcoin, and then everyone's losing their minds, and then it just now the Streisand effect, you just can't stop it. It's like I think that he's definitely the cypherpunk ethos era of crypto. He's the poster child for that, and we need to fight to protect Roger Ver, because without him in the mix, things start to look weird. I mean, we don't need to agree with him on every single thing. I agree with him on like 99.5% of things, but we don't need to agree with him on everything. He's good for crypto. He's good for drama, right?
Even regardless of that, right? Like, how is it possible that people who claim that they're against the state and against taxation and all of this are now like rallying behind and like, oh yeah, Roger should go to prison. He's a criminal. It's like, it's just insane to me that people who purport themselves as anti-state are now like enthusiastic about Roger or anyone, right? Regardless of how much you might disagree with them, being imprisoned for taxes or for anything that isn't a violent crime.
Yeah, especially
I gotta go. See you later. Merry Christmas, everyone. Good chatting. Catch you on the show next year.
Yep. See you guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Exactly.
People.
Let me actually
It's
find
disgusting.
that. Throw it on the screen.
Yeah. So it's really disgusting to see that. And I think people forget too the legal precedence that it sets, right? So whatever happens to Roger, the case law is going to be used against other people. Same thing. What happens with Roman and what happens with Samurai Wallet? Whatever that ends up being in their cases is going to end up being used against everyone else. And not can't forget Ian Freeman either. So these are real serious things. Like, this is why I'm kind of just like, hey, everyone's euphoric, but here's what's happening. At the same time, like, we can't forget about these people. We can't forget about their cases. We can't forget about like the impact that it has on all of us if this thing goes south, right? I mean, it would be great if Roger's case is, thrown out or he's pardoned. What does that do for the exit tax that, is definitely unconstitutional, right? What does that do with the terms of property tax? What does that do with people who want to renounce their citizenship, because that is often looked at by the authorities as something very, very negative. There's so many domino effects from that. Or Roman's case, like, hey, he's not responsible for what goes on, in Tornado Cash, right? Okay, he was a dev. What does that mean? Samurai Wallet and T-Dev, I mean, they're just pushing a wallet and letting people interact with each other, sovereignly. And just because the law, if they're prosecuted to the fullest degree, then their case, from what I was reading, which got me super just like down in the fucking dumps. But if they lose their case, then the idea of self-custody is at risk for everybody in the States. Like, we won't be able to do it legally, right? What is it? Ayn Rand has that quote, the government's job is to prosecute criminals, and then when they don't have any more criminals to prosecute, they make laws to make good men into criminals, So
yeah,
that
it's just kind of like you're eating food, and then you run out of food, and your body's like, oh, am I food? And it starts eating itself. That's literally what same thing that happens. Any organism has to continue, and that's the thing is like the government, of course, should be that's restricted in any way possible. And I would prefer there to be no government. Obviously, everyone knows how I think on this, but the point is, it's like a war machine. Like if you have a war to fight, it is a war machine, but it's also like a war machine. Where if you have a war to fight, you have a machine going at that task. But as soon as the threats start to wind down, you got to wind that machine down, or it's going to start eating everything. Just get rid of it. Just
Yo, sorry guys, I actually gotta go too. Thanks for having me, Angel.
Yep. Thanks, Callisti. Bye bye. And then there were 3. Oh.
So I want to go back to something that you said earlier.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the e-cashers. You didn't think that they have like really gone after Roger since they're split.
Not as salty.
Yeah, I wonder. Okay, so I remember right about that time, like when eCash was splitting from Bcash, and I wrote this article about fork trauma, right? About how
I
everyone
remember
is
that
all upset
article.
about it. Yeah, because it was like all previous forks, all previous, instances have been like really hostile events that have this really negative memory. And, this didn't have to be that way. Just because something was that way, it doesn't have to be that way going forward if you can make a conscious decision. But I also really was curious, like, who would be the right people to ask about whether or not it has been hostile? Because I guess probably Callisti would have been a great person to ask, but he just fell off. So,
I actually don't know. I mean, I would talk to probably Amari and Jeremy actually, because Amari has been on Jeremy's podcast in the last like 2 months, I think, or something, like relatively recently. And they did talk about stuff. And the thing about Amari is I don't necessarily always agree with what he says, but he's one of them very something about developers in particular. Developers a lot of times tend to be very even and rational type people, like not black and white, hyperbolic, all that kind of nonsense that I would say. And Amar is very educated and very fair in the way he characterized things. So I think it was a productive discussion. I'd have to go back and look at that. But as far as I'm aware, the e-cashers just didn't have that same boisterous community spirit of like, get rid of it, like the fighting spirit nearly as much. And when they went off and did their own thing, they seem to be very just happy doing their own thing right now.
yeah, you also mentioned that in the space we did last Friday. Oh, bless you.
Oh, thank you.
That in the space we did on Friday, that you thought that the eCash developer who was debating small block was really hostile.
Yes, he was. So for those who weren't paying attention, there was a space I was on Friday, hosted by the one and only Nerd Girl here, or at least organized. And it's, just a big, fun space, a lot of heavy hitters in there. Amir Taki got on, and I love Amir. He's one of the best people in the crypto space. He also loves to ramble. I remember just be like, I'm here. We're talking about other things, like, hey, right, and he just like done. But so there at some point there was some maxi again. I pay attention to few maxi people, so I don't think I knew who this person was, who was just talking about how scaling is like unsolved, or like we just learned that you can't scale by making the blocks bigger and blah blah blah. And then, obviously not true at all from people who pay attention to that part of space, who've been seeing it happen. But then basically it just turned into, I forget what his name was, but the eCash fellow, he was very like rude and interrupting him. He's like, nope, that's not true. Well, he's starting a sentence. And like, nope, that's not true. It's been you have false information all you want, but it's not true. Nope. And he's like, well, I mean, nope. I'm like, oh, all right, that's a little aggro. That's a little,
Yeah, I mean, it's like par for the course, right? With the maximalists, right? With the small blockers.
Yeah, although it kind of was a little bit interesting, because usually you'd think it's like the toxic maxi doing the toxic maxi things rather than the e-casher. But it was kind of interesting to see. It is kind of, and I did write a post. Let's see. Ooh,
he went away.
He disappeared. Oh no. Well, anyway, let me just say maybe my connection sucked or something. Anyway, well, I'm still here. It might have been just late anyway because it is like in the wee hours of the morning. But yeah, it was kind of interesting to see. It is fun to see in a technical space such as crypto like this. It is funny to see, to me, just how like untechnical some people are, or rather just how behind the tech some people just continue to be. And I feel like the 2017 arguments of the block size wars are absolutely irrelevant today, where we are able to see what we can do for scaling today and what are the trade-offs. They're not that hypothetical. We're able to see the scale to which you can build a single monolithic blockchain network, and what are how many nodes you have, what are the decentralization, and where you hit the bottlenecks. And okay, well then we got to parallelize like Solana. We got to do sharding like freaking Multiverse X or whatever the hell else, and we got to do this. And then how things actually work out is, I feel like it's very obvious for people who are watching the space today. But then just have this 2017 thing of, oh, you make the blocks bigger, you won't be decentralized, and don't have any data behind that. I think that's kind of over.
Yeah, I think that was kind of a point that continued to be made, even maybe after you fell off of that space, that they were discussing, like, well, there are trade-offs, right? Like, there are trade-offs when you make the blocks bigger, or like, or would you say that there are no trade-offs? And it was like, well, yeah, there are trade-offs, but like, how is that relevant when we haven't even come to a consensus about what decentralization means?
Yeah.
Because people use that term in varying ways in an attempt to manipulate those who are listening to them, right? Like, decentralization means that a certain percent of that it's distributed, more evenly distributed, that there aren't people on top of the pyramid holding the vast supply in some instances.
Yeah.
And then in other instances, decentralization means that the blocks that it's proof of work instead of proof of stake, because proof of stake can inherently not be decentralized, right? But it's like the terms are used interchangeably, or the term is used interchangeably to mean a variety of different things, depending on how it suits the person who's using the term.
Yeah, for sure. Random side note, our friend Justin Bonds of Cyber Capital.
Yeah.
His Twitter is hacked right now, and it's shilling some airdrop thing. So just so everyone knows, he did not actually go crazy. He just got his Twitter hacked, which sucks because he's a very known crypto influencer. And yeah, I guess I got to be careful with mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well. Okay, so the actual decentralization thing is kind of interesting because, we have air back.
Yeah.
Oh, said something happened on his end. Oh, I thought he was just done for the night. He just bye, Irish goodbye.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
No.
My Irish goodbye, buddy. As we were talking about, so first of all, Justin Bond's Twitter is hacked, so be careful with that. He's shilling some airdrop nonsense, so that sucks. And people give him shit for a while. As we were talking about the decentralization scaling arguments that are old as time, there are actual specific criteria we can come across with decentralization, because that's the thing, is like they say bigger blocks mean decentralization suffers, but like what does that mean, and at what point, and where's the metrics? For me, my metric is, can the average person use the network without trusting a single entity, and can they do it affordably? And and everything else contributes to that. And so you might have a network that, let's say XRP, probably lets you do that sort of today. But then it could really easily change because of, you could see, there's this certain entity that controls the list for the nodes and all this kind of stuff. And that could change very easily. So maybe you wouldn't call it decentralized. Or, you could call, like, maybe say Bitcoin quite decentralized. And then you're like, well, what if Foundry decides to do something, or one of these big mining pools to like censor your transaction? Could they? And maybe not that easily, but they could, there's an argument. And then you kind of go, or more importantly, what happens if Async or one of these large Lightning hubs just doesn't want to service you anymore? Can you use Lightning really? Not really. It's so that's kind of where the arguments go. And when people say, "Oh, decentralized is not decentralized," whatever. Well, how many actual validator nodes are there on the network, and how well distributed are they? How well distributed is the capital that's behind them that's staking it, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of different metrics you can actually use, but the whole, it harms decentralization without metrics, I think is kind of silly.
Yeah, and I mean it's similar to, right, like the argument being made. I'm asking these questions because I'm going to put together a panel to do that same space as like a rehashing the block wars, right? And I'm trying to figure out how I can do it without people getting into the weeds about arguments that are no longer relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, one of the arguments that's no longer relevant is, well, it was what Satoshi wanted, right? Because it doesn't really matter what Satoshi wanted. It's a matter of what the people who hold the token wanted, what the miners wanted, and they voted for what they wanted, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's, like, we need to come up with certain points that we're not going to go too deep into this argument because it doesn't matter. We need to come up with points that are relevant to the discussion today.
Yes.
That, to me, I look at that from a cultural perspective. It's I'm not a technical guy. I just look at the social aspect of everything. I find that that's the part that gets overlooked the most in the space. Everybody thinks that, okay, code is code, but there's someone who wrote it.
Mm-hmm.
And with regards to like what Satoshi wanted and his vision, etc. There are the semantics, but I think the overall context of it all is he wanted peer-to-peer transactions with no middleman. It was very clear. And what does centralization actually mean, right? Because it comes in so many different flavors. And all we have are trade-offs. There's never just like a one perfect solution. And I think if you're able to focus the topic around the social impacts of this, the block size wars, I think it might hit differently. But then you might just get, some autistic coder who's like, human, what's that? I just know code. And, then the conversation might go moot. But
no, I mean, we've been mutuals for a long time, Rare. Like, obviously, cultural is the only part of any of this that makes sense to me or that I care about, right? Because, like, I come from an academic background of cultural studies. So it makes sense that, like, that's all that would matter to me. But, when you get these guys on, right, like, there's no way that we're not going to get into that people are not going to get into the technical weeds with what it means. But I think at one point that really should be driven home, and that should be driven home more than I see it discussed now, is that the reason that any of this is relevant is because at the time in 2017, when this was happening, there was massive, massive censorship on social platforms and in media platforms. So all of the people who took the small block side, like, very firmly and decided we hate big blocks because they're centralized, those people didn't understand the code at the time either. Mm-hmm. All they were doing was repeating the talking points that they had heard, the same way that a lot of people are just repeating the same talking points that they hear on mainstream media today.
Yep, exactly. And it's the blind leading the blind. Yeah.
People are not watching. I'm pointing up at hijacking Bitcoin. Yes, there was a hijacking of the social channels for sure.
Yeah. I wrote an article a few months ago, and I tried to take the perspective of whether Bitcoin was hijacked or not. I'm on the side of it was, but to be objective, right? You have the blind leading the blind. Most people don't understand what they're doing, why they do it. and to what ends? How many people read the white paper and understand it? How many people read the white paper? How many people follow instructions? I mean, IKEA has, pictographic. See,
I don't.
my point.
Yeah, I don't read the IKEA instructions. Too many words.
Yeah. So I mean, it comes to a point where people like to talk what's popular, right? What's on YouTube? I really think Steve hit the nail on the head. We live in the dark ages. I think hijacking is definitely a pivotal moment. I think the whole COVID narrative, the bursting of that bubble is a narrative. Elon buying Twitter, whether you like him or not, is a pivotal moment. I mean, it just feels like we're starting to come out of that realm, right?
Mhm.
Light's broken through the clouds, but it's going to take a lot of time before people really accept that. And maybe this is just naive of me, but I think talking technicals is the least interesting aspect of this all. I mean, it's like arguing what's the best way to use a hammer on a nail. Sure, you can use this technique or that technique and this craft and this type of metal, but really at the end of the day, what's it for? What do we do with it? And that we always keep going past that discussion. I will say though, Jack Mahler's. I'm on the fence with this guy, but he did bring up an argument that I'm like, okay, I think I understand what you're saying. I don't know if I fully agree with it. He's like, people complain that you can't buy pizza with Bitcoin. He's like, well, what's more important? Making sure that your savings isn't getting debased or that you can buy pizza. I mean, for me, both, but it is what's the trade-off? Which one is more important for you?
Yeah.
And I think
Also,
that's very subjective,
So here's a question to consider too. I was thinking a lot as this discussion was being had on Friday, and I was thinking a lot about, they're talking Bitcoiners, small blockers. They're like, well, yeah, but we can resolve these problems on layer 2, and then layer 1 remains a settlement layer. But why is it the case that like using a layer 2, like Lightning or whatever comes to be used, is considered okay, but using like, I don't know, Bitcoin Cash as a layer 2 is not? Like, why is it? I guess because it's a different token is the answer.
Yeah, because there is no good answer.
Yeah.
There's no good answer. I side that it has mostly to do with ego.
Mm-hmm.
It might be
I agree with
too soon. Yeah, I mean, really, it's you can have your settlement layer on Bitcoin, but then your cash, layer 2 is Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin or Doge or whatever. People don't. I made a meme of that. Man, did that get some attention too? And,
yeah, you've been getting a lot of traction. To both of you have lately been getting a lot of engagement.
Except with the big difference is I'm hitting that pavement every single day, cranking out 8 to 20 like posts, and then once in a while I hit gold, whereas like Rare just like drops megaton nukes out of nowhere once in a while. Like, man, I'm not even going to be on Twitter for a while, and he comes back, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, dude, like, I think that
quality over quantity.
Well, the thing is, there's something to be said for like an actual like artist / creator and knows how to like make content that resonates to people, whereas I'm too much in my own head and too much in like the let me explain the intellectual principles of the Ben Shapiro mode, and it's just like no, it doesn't work. Where it's just like a meme of like BTC like being cucked with like the banks and stuff that just explodes all over the place. I'm just like, yeah, that says better than I could do. I should just only make memes from now on.
I mean, that seems to be a really winning strategy for a lot of people. I want to say one thing really quick, just because it's going to be like, and it's like, you know, that meme where there's a bunch of knives at like Flynn Rioter's throat, and it's like, what opinion about this would have you, you know, like this. So I feel like I have one of those that I've never shared with anyone, and I'm kind of like on the fence about it. So I'm going to just drop it here and see what you guys think. It's just a test, right? So we kind of we say that political prison, you know, cheering for political prisoners, right? Like Roger Revere, to be persecuted is wrong. But I wonder, is Craig Wright in that same boat with like his, you know, being sentenced to a year in jail and to pay, or a year in prison and to pay whatever amount it was? And I know that it's slightly different because Craig Wright has also persecuted people within the industry by like tying them up in legal, you know, entanglements over the years. So, but I wonder, like, how hypocritical is it to say that it's wrong for people to be, you know, cheering Roger's persecution, but themselves be cheering Craig's?
Yeah, so I have I'll give my opinion after Rare chimes in, but let me set the stage a little bit better or more expanded. It's not Roger and Craig. It's Roger and Craig and Richard Hart. Because I think that three of them together, there's different situations, but some similarity. So what would you say, Rare, about all those three before I give my opinion?
Well, I was trying not to bring up Richard because that's obviously totally, you know, like, but I think of them in the same way as well.
Yeah, I don't know Richard Hart or what's going on other than what I just recently came across. So I can't comment on that, but I will say with what I've seen from Craig Wright, he's been the aggressor in a lot of these instances, using lawfare to kind of get his way. I remember when he was attacking HODLNOT, you know, I donated to his cause. I donated to Hormix as well when he had it. Because you have somebody
not because they're lovely people, by the way.
Yeah, just
no,
because
but it's like it's just like, dude, you know, why are you going after this dude? You know, if you're supposedly someone who has all this wealth and you're attacking someone who has not, you know, that much, like it doesn't seem appropriate to use the legal system that way, right? It kind of perverts our idea of justice in this world. And so Craig Wright, it's almost as if karma came back to him, you know, at the end of this all. I wasn't cheering for him because, like, dude, I don't wish prison on anybody. I've already had friends who've, you know, gone and who are in prison. It's not fun. I mean, I've faced a threat of prison time myself in my days. That's not fun either. So I mean, it's just a shitty situation. But in Craig Wright's case, it's like, dude, you're playing with a force that, you know, it's to be reckoned with, and it came back to bite you, you know, and that sucks. I don't know him as a person. I don't think I'd want to, but I think, you know, he tried to go for something, it failed. This is the result, and it sucks. Sorry.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, right? Like, Craig is different because he was trying to say, well, the law will punish these people, instead of just like kind of minding his own business and being, you know, and speaking what he believed to be truth, but he actually got the legal system involved. So he started it essentially, and now he's being punished by the same method that he hoped to punish others by.
Yeah.
Right. And in Roger's case, I'd say I don't know all the ins and outs. I've been rereading his case over and over again. They're hitting him with so many different avenues. Tax evasion is just one. They're hitting with mail fraud. They're hitting with other stuff, and this is just it really it seems to me like it is a political stunt. But also because, again, at the end of the day, if he wins, then it has a trickle effect to everybody across the space, or everybody who's in crypto. So it's important for the state to crush dissent, which again, it doesn't bode well for our legal system, for our justice system. Um, Essentially, what it's doing is it's delegitimizing itself in the process. So with Roger's case, it's like this doesn't. The state is Craig Wright, and if it loses, it's going to lose big. So those are the. I think in this case, it's just people who cheer for Roger's demise. I think it's definitely more ego and has nothing to do with rationale, or it's just high school drama taken to another level.
Yeah, that is something that I think is Roger is completely innocent, and what I don't know, the only like caveat to the Roger thing, which is a very small one, is I really have no idea what his actual legal situation was. Like, did he try to get away with more money that he rightfully owned that the government should have had any right to, by the way? But I'm just saying, like, that's the only thing is, like, I hesitate to completely speak on things I don't have perfect information. But it sounds like he didn't do anything at all illegal, but I know he did nothing wrong. And he should absolutely be protected and should not be facing a single day in prison, etc. So that's for sure on Roger. And now my sliding scale goes next down the slope is Richard Hart, where I've been public that I don't know public, but I've been clear that I'm not a big fan of his necessarily, and I think he's done some sketchy promotions and other things like that. Now there's a charge, that some kind of an abuse charge that he has going on right now, which I did not look into if that's a legit one or a trumped up one. So I'm just going to mention that for the sake of mentioning it and just move on. That being said, so while I don't really I personally don't think Richard Hart is a hero of crypto, I also think that him losing his case is probably going to be bad for crypto, because it's, again, more precedents for people to come. And I don't know, did he scam a bunch of people? Who knows? But I don't think the kinds of charges, from my understanding, that he's facing are commensurate with whatever good or bad might have happened. So basically, I don't want Richard Hart to go to prison, but I'm not going to do this whole, like I did a Free Roger podcast, I have people on. I'm not doing any of that stuff for Richard, but I also hope he stays out of prison.
Sure. So can I just
please chime in, because you know more about this case than I do.
Yeah. So, okay. So like I've talked to Richard, Roger, and Craig, all of them,
Wow.
Off camera and on camera. I've talked to all of them.
I'm sorry.
No, no. There was this time when I was like working in crypto media, and so interviewing the people who were thought leaders was really important, really a big part of my jobs. So anyway, but so obviously, like, being part of the Hex Pulse community, I get like a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't show up on everyone's feed. So what's really interesting is that when Interpol or Europol upgraded Richard to red on Friday, it was just kind of, it was interesting to me, because those charges, the exact same charges that are now making him one of Europe's most wanted, were actually filed in 2021. So why would they just upgrade them on Friday, right before, right as we're turning into 2025, if it weren't political persecution? So I'm going to say that I really think that the same people who are attempting to silence Roger or silence anyone who speaks against small blocks are the same people who are behind trying to silence Richard, because he also has been very critical of Bitcoin and Bitcoin maximalism. Yeah. So there's that. The assault charge, I have no idea, right? People are like, oh, I'm sure he couldn't have done that. I know him so well. Listen, I have known people for years who ended up being, really horrible people. People are very capable of showing one side of themselves to one person and another side of themselves to other people. So I don't want to speculate on that. The allegation that he beat a teenager. People keep saying child or girl, but it's actually the person was 16 years old and they had long hair. We don't know if it was a male or female person. But the idea that this was just upgraded on Friday is what indicates to me that it is the same political kind of persecution. And then as far as the fraud charges go, like you can trace, what was done with the funds that went to sacrifices and the origin address. And like, I think that there's no grounds there. Someone made a really interesting point, which is the ruling on the Richard Hart case, whether or not the SEC has jurisdiction over it, is that judge is about to rule. That ruling could be any day now. Like it is expected any day now. So what's funny is that now Finland is claiming that should have been taxed as income in Finland. But if that should have been taxed as income in Finland, that is definitely that it can't be considered that the United States or the SEC has jurisdiction over it. So the possibility that case came as a result of the SEC believing that the charges will be dismissed, not like charges will be dismissed and Richard will be found innocent, but that the charges will be dismissed as out of jurisdiction, I think is worth noting and worth like actually remembering. But people were reporting that happened on Friday as if it were brand new news, as if it were breaking news, and those were new charges, and they were not new charges.
Upgrade. Yeah. The thing there's maybe an Occam's razor explanation for that, which I don't discount. I guess yours, but maybe it's just that they haven't gotten them yet, and then they're just like, all right, now the year's wrapping up, let's ramp it up and put more pressure to get them. Could be that, but it could also be for whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, but I mean, like, there's a pattern here, which is the sliding legalities of it all.
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
So, like with Roger, when he was doing his exit tax, as far as I can tell, authorities didn't know how to regulate crypto. Is it cash? Like, is this money or is this property? What is it? No one could identify it. And then when it's like, okay, well, it's a thing, we don't know. And then now, right, it's treated as property, has been for the last like 4 years. And let's get him on this charge.
Except when it's taxed, right? Because in the US there's no kind. Yeah. So it's property except when it's taxed, and then it's currency.
Yeah. Exactly. And well, I mean, even then it's a property tax. There's no 1031 exchange, like it's not treated like any other property, but it's a shifting, it's sliding, the whole thing. And so that is delegitimizing the rulings. With Mr. Hart, again, I don't know, but it seems like it may have been statute of limitations are starting to come up. I don't know what it is in Europe. Whereas Joel said, hey, it's closing time. We want to, wrap this up. Let's get this guy now.
Yeah.
I mean,
and escalate this, not just have a random arrest thing, but it's kind of, we haven't gotten them 8 years later or whatever. Like they're going to close in on their victim here,
And that also is, delegitimizing itself in that way, which is the thing that I'll give Jeremy that, which is, and I know Amir told me this one not too long ago, but it's like they're showing their hand, right? Every time they do something like this, it shows the weak and vulnerable spots. I accept that. I think that's important, but it shows how dangerous it is, right? It's when they're back in the corner, they'll do what they can to reestablish a power position.
Yeah, because for me, like the charges and like Interpol chasing after this kid, to me, this dude is like a bigger version of the Haktua girl. It's just some dude who's like selling these tokens, people buy them, whatever. Like, okay, is there a civil suit of like misrepresentation of this? Maybe, but like, is this like a Interpol's got to chase this guy to the ends of the earth? He's on a red list. Like, that doesn't make sense. Absolutely not. Now, then we go down to the third item on the list, which is Craig fucking Wright. So good old Craig Wright. I will summarize my points by saying fuck him. So, and the reason is because not only did he seek to engage with the court and legal system, but he sought to engage in a way to attack people and harm them who had not attacked and harmed him, at least not in that way. I mean, you could talk about the Maxis talking shit to him is one thing, but as far as like trying to sue Roger, ruin his people's livelihoods, things like that. No good. But also he sought the court to determine whether or not he is Satoshi Nakamoto. He's sought to do that for the longest time. And when the court then determines they don't think he is, and therefore he's a fraudster and all this other kind of stuff, I don't know, you reap what you sow at this point. Like, I'm not like hoping like bad things for him, but I also feel not the slightest bit of sympathy for anything that he has coming his way. One thing I am happy for is it seems like as a result of this, he's going to kind of go away, like not be an annoyance to the space anymore. So that's what I want out of it, is him to go away, even if he's perfectly happy and unharmed and successful. But he kind of, it's just like when you kick down someone's door and start pointing guns in people's face and someone shoots you. No sympathy. That's my take on that.
Sure, I understand that. I guess that was my question. And you've answered it by saying it actually is different in the Craig Wright case because Craig engaged the law first. It wasn't the case that the law just sought him out of nowhere. It was him who started it.
Yeah. And also,
that tends to be the case, right? With a lot of things, it's usually the state. If it's weird saying this, but unless the individual does something, like the state barely notices or recognizes. Like that was the thing with Rogers. Like someone pointed the authorities at him. Yeah, someone came after him, and that's kind of the case in point. Right? It's someone does something. It's always down to the individual. I think in all three of these matters, it should be seen, case by case. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, so because I mentioned, what do you think of the Hawk Tua case? Yeah, Hawk v Tua 2024 or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's
what happened to her?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the moment she exploded, I don't know the name. I have some feelings about who represented her, like right off the bat, the moment she became famous. That was a powder keg ready to explode, and it did a lot faster than I thought. Well, no, actually a lot slower than I thought. Excuse me. But when she was going to launch the coin, that should have been like the biggest red flag to anybody with at least 2 brain cells.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem that people have is, oh, you scammed me. Like everybody's looking for someone else to blame except themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
you played yourself.
It sucks to say that. Yeah, it sucks to say that, but the idea of
I don't even think it sucks to say that.
Individual responsibility.
No Hawk Tua pun intended. I don't even think it sucks to say that in this case, because it's just like, as I've mentioned before, the spit on the protruding member token. You expect this to be like a legit financial product? It's the coin by a 21-year-old girl.
I want to clarify something. Yeah.
Oh, like you deserve to lose all your money.
When I say it's sad, I don't mean like it's sad for them. It's just sad having to say it.
Yes.
It's just we're at a point where people don't want responsibility, which is also why people don't take their coins off exchanges, why people go to custodial solutions, why people continue to not do the homework. No one wants responsibility, right? And I think this is the product of the nanny state. I'm going to stop right there, but Hawk Tua is I don't know why the lawsuit, I think, just makes this a lot harder. Like, what's the ramifications that come from this? There's a direct consequence that she's going to face. What's the indirect consequence that we're going to face? What's the unseen and unintended consequences that are going to come out, in this entire area? Like,
Yeah.
this stuff just piles on.
Unfortunately, now because there's a lawsuit, now they're actually going to spit on that thing. Now there's actually going to be like, it's getting nasty now. Like, I wish you could just have our simple pump and dump and be left alone. But now, because the courts are getting involved, it's like, now there's going to be some sort of like, you got to watch what you say. If I call something a shitcoin, am I liable? Like, come on.
Well, I'll tell you an indirect consequence out of this one.
Yeah.
It's the idea of celebrity, right? So in a lot of productions, if someone's trying to get a project off the ground, they're looking for like the first seed funding rounds, or they're going in for their series A or B. Now everybody's kind of shaken. They're like, okay, I was going to approach this one influencer, I was going to approach this one YouTuber, I was going to approach this one, athlete, whatever. Now it's like, ugh, I don't know. Now they're a liability. And a lot of these type of projects are very, very risky. And so you already have investors who are highly risk averse, unless there's like some catch or draw. And now it's taking it away. On one side, hey, it's great because now projects have to be greenlit on its merit, but then it's, bad because a lot of projects might not see the light of day either. And then that consequence is that not many people are going to have employment because not as many productions are going to, take off, and it keeps cascading from there and there.
But celebrity has always been the kiss of death in cryptocurrency, right? Like look in, the last cycle when Paris Hilton and all of the mainstream celebrities started launching NFT collections. That marked the top. It's always been the top. When celebrities start talking about crypto, it's not new that this like Hawk Tuah, thing was ended in catastrophe. But I think what Joel is saying is that it actually does matter because it's going to set precedent for what people can and can't do with meme coins and other things. So I think that's, valid point. But I think like with the Hawk Tuah thing, so let's just use a different example from around the same era. There was this guy who created, the chill guy, right? Like the chill guy.
Oh, the chill guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chill guy. And then he was approached pretty much right away after that chill guy started taking off. Hey, let's do a meme coin. And he's like, no, I'm not doing a meme coin. Like that's, crap. And he created like a line of products, physical products like stuffed animals and that kind of thing to sell. And then everybody was making fun of him. Oh, we could have made so much money on a meme coin. But his logic for not wanting to launch a meme coin was, I don't understand enough about the technology. I won't be in control of it enough. I don't want to get blamed if it goes down. And I think that is likely what happened with the, Haley Welch girl. But, you have to accept a certain amount of responsibility when you use your brand to promote something, whether you have control of it or not. I do think that it's likely that she had no idea what was going on, that like she was just used as a prop. But yeah.
100%. I'll tell you how this stuff goes. I've seen it one too many times. So someone, and this isn't related just to crypto. This is just like in the celebrity space. Someone does something of note. It has quite a bit of attention. And then you're bombarded by legal representatives, talent representatives, licensing representatives. Like everybody comes at you quick, and you can't tell, head from tail, left to right. Like it is just a world of confusion. And so you get the snake oil salesman who tries to say, I've got your best interest. I'm going to do this. I'm going to, make sure that everything is taken care of, et cetera, et cetera. I'll be your PR. And then they do this, they just take advantage straight off the bat. And the person who has no idea, they've never been in that industry. They have no clue what to expect or what's normal or what's, in professional practice. And they just get taken for everything they're worth. And then at the end of the day, it's too late because the people who really made out with the money is either the lawyer, the PR rep, the agency, the distributor, the licensor. Everybody's milked that cow. And then that person's left to dry. And she's got to find her own new legal representation to handle the lawsuit. It sucks. It's and it happens all the time, like clockwork.
Yeah, I mean, it seems remarkably unremarkable almost in that, like, I almost hope, because there's been so many, like Elvis might have been like one of the first superstars who just got like destroyed by the stardom, and then like we have like the rock star era and then movie stars and stuff, and just all the child stars, just all the awful stuff that comes around with it. And maybe this one girl, I mean, speed running celebrity, right? This is the celebrity speed run right there. One little spit on that thing joke, and then before you know it, you're like a massive sensation and influencer, and you're already in your downfall era, and it's not even been a year. Like, hopefully,
No.
she gets through the cycle and then just like has mild trauma, right? Doesn't have that like lifetime of addiction, like that level of typical celebrity trauma. That maybe she just has that what a wild summer kind of trauma, and is able to just like coast into a nice, fun, relaxing, like reasonable life after this, and doesn't have this coming. Maybe I'm being too optimistic about it. I see the face where you don't seem that optimistic.
No, I've seen it, man. That's the thing. Being in this industry, you just see this stuff happen so much.
Mm.
So just from not my experience, but seeing it happen to other people, she'll go through the lawsuit. It's going to be a couple of years that she has to deal with this, and she'll probably just go into hiding, just like be silent, maybe, or not as active. Fade, and the best thing for her would be to fade into obscurity, because if she pops up and people continue to ask questions, unless she gets another a very well-meaning, well-intentioned, someone who's genuinely looking after her best interest, yeah, she's just, they're more likely to fall into the same trap again. And it's just better if she just disappears.
Mm-hmm.
And fade from the public conscious.
Yeah, the problem with is then it's back to the spring factory. Like at that point, you're back to being a pleb. You're back to being just a regular person that no one cares about, but with all this weird baggage.
Just to ashes, dust to dust.
Yes. So like once you're like, what is it, the that old saying about he who rides the tiger may not easily dismount? It's like he's riding that tiger and it sucks, but you're not going to be like, I'm done. You just get off the tiger. No, it's not that easy anymore, especially when you've had that taste of you're just an extremely normal person. And now all the best, coolest people in the world, also the worst, but whatever, want to talk to you, have you on their shows. They want to have you, here's my, have merch. You just spit on that thing, you get $100,000. Like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden life is easy. You get to eat better food. You get to go better places. You get to, and then you just be like, you know what? I'm done with that. I'm going back. Like as a kid, it goes back to the brokenness of being a kid and just being a nobody and doing the terrible jobs and working your way up. That's a lot harder than being like, I'm 42. I was famous. I have some money, and I'm going to walk away and just like become like a woodworker or something and have my own artisanal shop that I just quietly do this stuff. And it's a peaceful life. It's a lot easier once you're older, more mature, you have skills and talents, and you have some capital runway to a cushy, easy life in obscurity, rather than you're just back to the spring factory. You're in the dating pool. No one is going to like match with you on, whatever the people are using these days, Hinge or whatever. And then just, it's always going to be a thing. Is this person going to try to date me just to say, look, just so we can like pull out that line when it's go time? Are you going to go spit on that thing? Whatever. Like there's just so many layers of nonsense that she has to deal with. And probably going to have to milk it a little bit, keep on milking it. Not going to dismount that tiger.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing with this type of celebrity is like, you got to know when to hold it, know when to fold it. Like, I don't know if you remember, if you remember, what's his name? Rick Moranis. right? He was in
Yeah.
Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, I
And
remember him.
okay, yeah. So yeah, I mean, he was one of the smart ones. He reached a certain level, certain threshold, and then he's like, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
Disappears, goes and enjoys his life. Gets a residual check from New Line Cinema every now and then, and just
Yeah.
goes on. That's the best you can do.
Well, speaking of which, to turn that to crypto, isn't that kind of what you might say that Andreas Antonopoulos is probably doing right now? Like he just sort of
Yep.
just pieced out a little bit. I forget who I heard. Someone this year saw him at a conference, some crypto conference, and he wasn't giving a talk. He was going to talks and like taking notes and like listening stuff. So he's still in the space, despite being one of the biggest educators, the biggest faces of Bitcoin in the very early days. And then after the block size wars, he just kind of like pieced out and just disappeared. You just didn't hear from him anymore. He blocked a bunch of people too.
I heard that he retired from
Mm-hmm.
the whole space. He's probably still in it, but I mean, at some point, you know, you fold it and you say, I'm good. I have enough. There was this one. Somebody posted this one on Twitter. Yeah, I think it was a Minority Mindset, and he's like, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
He sold all his Bitcoin, and it's like, oh, he's so stupid. He did it when it was 7. It's like, maybe that was it. That was enough. He got what he needed. Traded it for, I don't know, 100 acres of land or something. Who cares what he did with it? But it's like that's the threshold. That was the benchmark. Wash my hands. I got what I needed. And
Yeah.
so it happens.
So why don't we sort of start winding this thing down a little bit with the thought of retiring from crypto for either of you guys. So, Nicole, let's start with you. Have you thought of retiring from the space ever, as far as like getting out of it, as far as, oh, you reach a certain level of capital and then live off of that, and then you just like people don't hear from you again? Are you kind of always gonna have a toe in? Like what's your thoughts on like involvement in crypto, and is there like a retirement idea in your head?
Yeah, I mean, of course I have like ideas about, once I reach a certain amount of dollars, or a certain amount of crypto value, that then I will no longer actually work like a regular job, right? And I've taken breaks from regular jobs before, right? I essentially took 2 years off during this last bear market, and then like, cuz I mentally needed a break. I was just like, from how much work it was during the last bull, I was like just broken, and my personal life was in
Mm-hmm.
shambles, and I really needed to pick up the pieces of my personal life, and I could not do that while I was still working. It was too much for me to manage everything. So I took 2 years off, and then I came back to work because I was bored and because I needed money. And so now I'm back at work, but I imagine that, like, I don't think that I'll ever retire entirely from everything, because I need to have a purpose, or I'll get idle and like do nothing and then just get bored, and I can't do that again. But like, will I eventually not work in crypto anymore? Yeah, probably. I hope not. It's really stressful. I mean, depending on who you are and what kind of job you have. I know that
Mm-hmm.
my experience in every version of crypto that I've worked in has been very stressful. It's super taxing. It's emotionally draining. And it does tax your personal life, your family life, and whatever you have going on outside of the screen. So I do think that my goal is to eventually find something else that I care about, that I feel passionate about, and that I can, potentially make a career in, or a at least make a purpose of, right? So that I'm doing something that isn't just cryptocurrency. I don't know if I'll ever decide that I'm going to like never tweet again, just because I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's fun and enjoyable to, shit post. And maybe that crypto becomes part of my life that isn't such a big deal anymore, so that all I'm posting about is whatever else is. But like, I don't think that I'll ever completely disappear and fade away. But yeah, I think there will come a time when crypto is no longer a central tenet of who I am.
Yeah. Well said. What do you think, Rare, for yourself?
Oh, I mean, I'm kind of retired now.
Right. Well, you're still on the show, so that's something.
Yeah, I mean, I like crypto is not my job. It's a part of my life, and I just try to share my experience, shit posting, through memes and just expressing myself. And I hope I provide some good to the space and make a contribution. But I mean, I don't know. Uh, I was here for a revolution. I think it's still going on. Hopefully can continue until I'm not needed anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that is. I'll probably know. It's, but right now, just I'm here. I'm doing what I need to do. I'm glad that I can say I'm semi-retired from my industry, and that frees me up to do a lot more creative things when you don't have to constantly thinking about money and all the other crap that comes with what I do or professionally.
Mm.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. And as for myself, I don't. Who knows? The point is, first of all, I don't fully believe in retirement. I believe you should kind of do something all the time. Otherwise, you just like die. I mean, it happens a lot when people like actually retire from their job. They just, you need something to do constantly, something that like needs you to be there. That you can't just, yeah, I'll dip my toe here or there. So I'll always be doing something. As far as crypto, I mean, it's been like 12 years already, but like also my entire life I've been sort of focused on like the greater freedom movement and professionally as well as on the side. And I think there's always a lot of work to be done there, right? And when I heard about crypto, started using Bitcoin and stuff, I was like, this is something new. This is where it's happening. Just like when I heard about all the free staters over there in New Hampshire doing stuff, I'm just like, this is exciting. I want to be part of. I want to move there right now. I want to be there. And so, still there for both counts. And I guess we'll see, right? I'll be in as long as it's there, as long as it's fun and exciting, as long as there's more stuff, and as long as there's work to be done. We'll see where the work goes next.
yeah,
Maybe the next work is like legislative stuff and maybe some AI based. Who the hell knows? But as long as it's on like the frontiers of freedom, I think that's always where I'll be. And if I retire from an official job, I'll just be more of a speaker, pontificator, consultant, but still in whatever. But I mean, listen, how many people do you see spending crypto on a daily basis? It's just like, especially sovereign, self custody, scarce coins with any kind of privacy. Like, we have so much work left to do. I'm not going anywhere. I don't get to retire. Are you fucking kidding me? I gotta be here for a while. Like, there's a lot left to do. And then at some point when it becomes boring, like, I don't know. I can't, at the same time as we're trying for a world where I get bored because I have nothing to do, it's such a momentous change from even where we are now 15 years later with governments trying to get in on the action now. So, yeah, I don't know. Be here for a while. So, and I'll just keep on doing this show as long as I can, just to give me something to do and talk about, give me a social life, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my perspective.
amen. I mean, there is a lot of work to do, especially to help people be more sovereign. I think that's the overarching goal still of crypto is helping people live a sovereign life, more self-reliance for them. And I think the more human freedom there is, the better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to take a lot of work to get people to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a good spot to like wrap this thing up, I think. Thanks to everyone for being on. You guys have been great. Rare's been there from the beginning all the way through like the wee hours of the morning. So for those who are watching, hit the like button, all that kind of good stuff. But I am doing an X Space after party. Typically, after I do these like Friday night podcasts, there's just like a fans of the channel private like after party Jitsi call type thing. And I thought, I might as well make it public this time. And so now we're starting in about 30 minutes after I get a coffee and stuff. We'll just get on like a after party X Space. Anyone who didn't get in already can just jump on that. You guys can probably, at least Rare can go to bed. Nicole, you're welcome to join that one too if you want, but it's just whatever. So I'll be posting about that. If you're commenting on the Inleo Threadcast, which is pretty cool because I have like a live chat going on Inleo where people who comment, I can upvote them and give them money, give them paid in crypto. And that's pretty cool. That will still apply to the live chat of the after party. So it's all about the after party. If anyone's not doing that, suit yourself, go to your boring life. Merry Christmas and happy holidays, whatever other, is Hanukkah over? I think Hanukkah's over. Whatever else is going on. Yeah, have a good one. And a week from today, I'm going to do a New Year's special podcast. So that's going to be fun too. So watch out for that and close out the year strong. There's not much left of it. Whatever you need to squeeze in before the year's over, you better squeeze it in now. Thanks, guys.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Bye-bye. See you maybe in half an hour, maybe not. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.